That's all over the internet, not top million pages. Massive growth. Next.js, we just had the talk before, massive growth since 2020. Then, like headless CMSs like Sanity or Strappy, all are growing. WordPress, because of the drama probably flattening out. Drupal, if you take off the internet, it's going down. As I said before, this includes Drupal 7 sites. But if you compare modern front-end stack exploding, headless CMSs also going up, traditional CMS vendors going down. This is just the data. If you look on the October's report, this is the top statistics that are published every year. What are the top programming languages? Python, because of all AI stuff, but JavaScript, TypeScript, top. PHP is still there. There is another graph about fastest growing languages, also Python, top, because of the AI stuff, I guess, but TypeScript is top. So fastest growing PHP is not there, so it's not one thing that's growing. And also the top 5 languages most commonly used in repositories created in the last 12 months. JavaScript is number 1. So clearly see the trend from, let's say, this traditional approach is PHP as a coding language towards JavaScript and more modern front ends, which is happening in the industry. So the good news is it's not Next.js versus Drupal, it's actually Next.js and Drupal. That's very important, and this is also what this talk is about, that we as a Drupal community learn more about Next.js and how we can actually integrate that in Drupal. So, yeah. So I'm Lucas. I'm speaking about each strategy, web technology. I'm the founder of Node.ch, and we also launched the Node-Hive Headless CMS, which is a productized headless Drupal solution, which I will also show later in the talk. So I'm also a passionate gardener, also like compost with compost worms. We could stop talking about Next.js and talk about composting if you like. We can also do that later. I recently also started a YouTube channel, Modern Web Architect. I started actually in January. I also cover lots of Drupal stuff. For example, I had a podcast with Jürgen, with ECA, also with Cheney, the AI module, but I also cover other things, also modern front-end like Next.js. So you might want to follow the channel. So what I will cover, I thought, how can I actually show what Next.js is? And I will start with the demo, very hands-on. Then, show other features, compare it with other frameworks, and show how are the advanced features of Next.js. Then a Drupal integration, and then a final conclusion. So, yeah, let's get started. What will I show you in the first part? So basically, how to install Next.js, what file-based is, what is layout, CSS, page, CSS, a little bit about React, and then special components like the link component and images. And it's live coding, we'll see if that works. So, what I typically do, I go on Next.js.org, even if I start a new project, and then they have very, very good documentation. So, let's open that up. And one thing I have to mention here at this point, Next.js is started in 2016 and also evolved over time. And today there are 2 ways how the routing works. There is pages router and app router. App router is the standard today. It was established roughly 2 years ago. The pages router is the old approach, but still supported by the framework. And I will only talk about the app router because it includes the most recent features of React 18 and 19, like React. I will explain that in a minute. So how can I then install it? Well, basically, I simply run this npx command. I'm on my command line. Can you see it? Good enough? So what's important, you have to use Node 18 or later to actually get it up and running. So I say mountain and demo JS. Then yes, I want TypeScript. Yes, I want linting. Yes, I want Tailwind. I want the source directory. Now I can decide, do I want the app router or pages router? I want the app router. I want TurboPack. TurboPack is the most recent way how they bundle the whole Next.js stuff. So they used to use Webpack, which tends to be slow. They, as Vercel, the makers of Next.js, invented TurboPack, which is, I think, Rust-based, very quick, so the development service is fast. So I do that, and then importing, now it's pulling in all the NPM data. And as I said before, I will show file-based routing layout HKCRUV. And let's see if that comes up. So we have it here. So I open up the code editor. So, okay, now we have a bare bone Next.js project. And I quickly go through the structure. It's very easy to understand actually. So here we have the node modules, all the dependencies. We have the public folder where we have assets. Then we have the source. I will open up that later. And we have some config files. One of the important config files is next.config. Here you can add all the options, and there is also documentation about that. Next.config. So there are lots of options you can define. I won't go through that, but this is an important file if you work with Next.js. Yeah, there is also tsconfig, etc. So that's fine. Now I can start the dev server, npm run dev. And then I can open it up on localhost and I can run several. So it's on 2 now. And voila, I have my welcome page of Next.js. So now I open up source, and here you see I have layout TSX and page TSX. So this is the content that was shown in the page. I just remove everything, and then I just write hello here. So now I have this page, and I can actually start adding stuff, adding React what I want. What's interesting is, and that's actually similar to the layouting system in Drupal, we have like a global layout or page HTML template in Drupal. In Next.js it's called layout TSX, where we import some global stuff like the fonts and the actual HTML wrapper. And here, for example, I could add, let's say I add navigation, and just a small list, and then I add a couple of links. You know, I wouldn't do that in a real project, but it's a demo. Let's say I want an about page, and voila, now I have them here. So since it's using Tailwind out of the box, so I can quickly style it a little bit, so that's fine. So now I want to add the about page. How can I do this? So it's, as I said, file-based. So now I create a new route, a new folder called route. So this will be route page. And Next.js expects to exist another HTSX. So you see already the structure. So I have page, then I have another page here. Because I'm lazy, I just copy paste this one. And I just say about here. This one we can just rename the page. And now if I open up here about, I'm at the about page. Very straightforward, file-based. That's the approach. Now, so what about dynamic routes? So if I, let's say, want to integrate Drupal, I won't recreate all the, all the folders. That would be stupid. So in Next.js, there is something like dynamic routes. So I have the spread operator and let's say slug. And inside that, again, I create a page, TSX. Now I double click. I just open up another project so we can. Which one was it? This one. Slug. This is it. So what's happening here again? This is the page React component. It expects parameters. So these are the parameters from slug. Then I extract slug out of it, and then I just write my slug. Now it's dynamic. So if I write ASDF, it should say my slug is ASDF. Right. So in theory, I could now say I load node 1, and on this page I would call the backend, load the data, and then actually render it on that specific route. So this is the main mechanism how routing works in Next.js. Now, obviously, this is very stupid to have this navigation hard-coded here. So what you would typically do, and that's more React. Like React is about composition of components, so you can reuse them and also cascade them. So typically what you have is something like components, fold components, and inside I would, for example, create navigation.tsx. Now I also cheat a little bit. So I already created that here, so we have the navigation, and here in the navigation we again expose a React component called navigation, and here is the navigation. And you already see here, I'm not using a cat, I can do that. So now if I refresh navigation is done. Now I go to global layout, import the navigation, and my editor already saw the component, so I use it like that, and then also here it's importing it. Close it never. Now here refresh and have my navigation composed, right? So now if I click on it, it's going back and forth. And now I want to demo that. Here I'm using a regular HTML anchor tag, or I can use the link tag. So what is the difference? So if I click here now, and I go back, just quickly open up and see more or less. Just to make the point. Now if I click on the regular HTML tag, the browser expects to completely reload the page because it's a link. You know, I go to a new page. So it's actually loading everything that needs to be loaded, right, to actually show that page. Now if I use the link component, Next.js is abstracting away the whole routing for me. So what in the past when we used single page applications, we thought about routing, it was quite complex to do, but here we can simply use the link component, and if I now click on the about page, it only loads data needed. So it's basically only loading that page, you know, that this page, this content as part of the request. So you already see how this comes together. So it's kind of a single page application, but not really. So it's loading server side. I will explain it a little bit more. But this is kind of the magic what Next.js brings out of the box, and it takes away a lot of the complexity which you would typically do when you go single page only or client-side rendering. Yeah, so I wanted to show that. Let's go back to the presentation. There's one thing I haven't shown, which is the image tag. So I won't demo that in code, but instead of using the image tag, there is a Next.js image component. And image component is similar to what before was shown with the rock tag. So you can use image and just reference an image. This could be an image from a Drupal backend or from an image CDN. And this image, or this image component, will automatically resize the image based on this definition. So we never ever have to recreate a image style in Drupal, because the frontend framework itself can do that out of the box. And you don't need an additional service with Next.js. The actually image resizing is included in the Next.js package, and it's cached on the Next.js style system, actually. And it's quite clever, and it really behaves like image tag. So you have with alt tag, you can even do an additional loader. So if you have large images, you can placeholder images. Also, yeah, the different sizes for responsive behavior. Just get it for free. It's very powerful. So yeah, that was a very quick introduction of the basics of Next.js, and I wanted to demo that instead of going through slides to actually do the coding. I don't know if there are some questions at this point. Does it make sense? It's quite easy and straightforward. So let's go back to slides. So what is now Next.js? So basically, Next.js is a React framework for building full stack web applications. So what does that mean, full stack? So Next.js can also be as an equation. Next.js is React.js as a frontend library, routing, just demonstrate. It's server-side rendering, also static generation. It offers other features like API routes, which I didn't demo it at this point. And it includes several performance optimizations like code splitting, image optimization I just demoed. And Next.js is also built in a way that it can run on edge compute. So basically you can have the Next.js application globally distributed, and they give you access to site in Australia. You will access the same Next.js edge functions in a nearby data set. So very powerful things, and what Next.js is also called basically the meta framework for React. So React itself, without the backend, doesn't make sense at all. I mean, React.js started as a front-end library, and then you have to build the backend yourself, whether it's PHP, backend, whatever. But now Next.js is a full stack framework, so it also includes the backend part. It comes as a full solution. So we are at the Drupal event. So if you compare Drupal to Next.js, if that even makes sense, but I try to. So Next.js is JavaScript TypeScript based. Node.js is the core technology. Drupal obviously PHP. The stack that's also interesting. Next.js implemented their own web server, which is heavily dependent on the Node.js HTTP modules, and as I said, React.js as a content layer. And in Drupal, since modern Drupal, we are fully built on top of HTTP violation with in the front end, so what we call modern Drupal. Use case for Next.js, it's a framework for custom web apps, websites, etc. Drupal is a CMS, but can also be seen as a framework for websites and web apps. Routing is file-based in Next.js, dynamic routing with URL aliases, that's a clear difference. Rendering is JSX in Next.js, and in Drupal it's Tweak. About rendering, I will talk about more about rendering in a minute, but the flexibility of Next.js with rendering is much, much higher, because we have the same technology in the backend. We can render on the backend, but we can also render in the front end, because it's the same JavaScript programming language. Hosting might be a bit more complicated with Next.js, because Node hosting and JavaScript and runtime hosting is not that much available, whereas in the traditional hosting, everybody's offering the stack. Customization, obviously you have a library of React components with access to the whole NPM ecosystem. So Next.js is fully transparent for any NPM package. In Drupal, we have the Drupal plugin ecosystem, and of course also Composer, so that's comparable. License is a bit more permissive in Drupal, so MIT is very attractive. lots of startups actually use Next.js as their core technology because it's MIT and they can do whatever they want and sell it. In Drupal it's a bit more tricky and it's a bit, more permissive. Interestingly, the launch date is almost the same. If we take Drupal as the modern Drupal, it's just one example. I won't go in detail here. One thing I think is important to mention. Next.js is open source, as I said, MIT, but the company behind is Vercel. And they also have to make money, right? And what Vercel does, they have a hosting platform, very attractive. You also use it at NetNode for development. It's very easy to check out feature branches, super fast, and it's also specifically made for Next.js, but also other front-end frameworks. But there is one thing, costs a lot. So Next.js is also criticized because it's like made by Vercel, and depending on the interest of Vercel, what's going to happen with Next.js in the long run. What I see, and just recently they published a new documentation how you can self-host Next.js, and for example, via Node we also do that. So our policy is if it's a small site with not so much traffic, the benefits we gain from Vercel in terms of convenience, it's just super fast. You have monitoring included. Is worth the price. If you have a high traffic website, you have to find another strategy. We have one client, if we would go on Vercel, it costs $6,000 a month. Now it's like $150 a month, or a bit more maybe. So Vercel can become super expensive. So let's talk a bit about more advanced Next.js features like middleware, React server components, and API routes. So middleware, what is middleware? So every request that goes to Next.js goes through the middleware. So basically what you can do, you have one configuration file, middleware, in theory, you create in the app directory or source, you would simply create a middleware, yes, and just add the functions you want. You can then react on the next request and do whatever you want. So one thing is for redirects, another thing is, for example, you can take the IP address and look up the country or the area, attach that to the request, and then add personalization in the front end. So if somebody in Germany accesses you, you maybe promote whatever products for the German market. That's an interesting feature, middleware. Actually, Drupal has this also. It's much more complicated to use middleware Drupal in the Symfony stack. Next.js is super convenient and easy to use for these things. Very powerful solution. Yeah, React server components. It's a funny image and it's kind of a meme. Roughly 1.5 years ago, React server components were launched, and everybody in the JavaScript system that were PHP developers said, oh my god, we are going back to PHP because this code really looks like PHP today. And I show it what I mean. So this is not the PHP part. This is the single page part. I took a screenshot from the blog post. I highly recommend you read it. It explains very well the history of the whole thing. But so client-side rendering, this is roughly 2.16, let's say. You load the single-page application. If you open up browser page source, you see that on the right. What you see here is no content whatsoever. You just need to see the root element. And then you actually have the bundle, which is the application, which then the browser renders. Then in the DOM, you see, for example, with the header and whatever components there are. This was a big issue because what happens if Google comes, it just sees this page. Oh, you need to enable JavaScript. If you have disabled JavaScript, then you also have this issue. So, not a good idea. So what was the solution? So let's add server-side rendering. This is actually the reason why all this modern JavaScript framework started to exist, including Next.js and others. So what's happening? Somebody accessing a website, the page with all its components gets server-side rendered, it will be sent to the client, including the content. Then another request goes back to load all the JavaScript stuff, which then is loaded by the browser, gets hydrated, so the elements are actually interactive. Wonderful, solved, so whenever you click on it, then your the whole page, whole content comes. That's good. In Next.js, we have other features. So now, I think this is roughly 2 or 3 years old. We have something like suspense, because the issue here, you completely render everything on the server side. So let's assume you want to load 1,000 books from a remote database. This request takes some time. Ideally, you could already load the UI, and then another request goes out and pulling in that data. That was very cool here, because you could load basically a stop, and then you have sections, and lazy load all components in it. So that's why the React community came up and said, hey, we need something like suspense. So we have everything here server-side rendered. And then there is one suspense boundary, which we have a fallback. So as long as the content is not loaded, we show the spinner. Once it's loaded, then show and replace the content here. So we have a combination of lazy loading basically, and still server-side rendered. A very interesting concept. And this, so you have basically the win of both sides. That's it. So this is server-side rendering in some sense. But then this was also not enough, because at one point you had to hydrate the UI, which then again the whole client application was behaving like a single page application, and you still then lose the way to render stuff on the backend, and that's why React Server components are introduced. And by default now, if you start an Next.js project as I did before, it's server-side rendered with React Server components. So this component is a client component, and you have to define this directive, use client. So by default, everything is server-side, and you have to specifically mention if you want it to behave like a client-side component. And for this example, it probably makes sense to use client. Why? Because it's an interactive component. You cannot do that on the server side. So when you click, the count goes up. It doesn't make sense to render that server side. That's why you use client. Whereas with React Server components, and that's now the PHP part. So this code looks very similar to actually a Drupal controller. So you have a function. The function loads some data from somewhere, and then you give it to the theming layer, which then renders the data. Right? This is exactly what we do all the time with controllers. So we have a route, we load some data, and then we build up the render array, and then frontend layer would render it. Simplified. And when I saw this, I said, wow, this is my mental model. So all this single page application mess we had before is gone. So this is very easy to program, and also, since it's rendered on the server side, I don't have to care about security. So I have my private tokens; they're all on the server side. And then what's cool, and I actually didn't add it in the demo, I can still use this counter component, and for example, add it here if I want to. So I can even combine server side stuff and client stuff. So it's kind of a mix of both worlds, which is very interesting how to use. Yeah, so this is React Server components, and it's stable now as of React 19, which was released in December last year. So it's very recent stuff. Next.js offers a lot more. So we only scratched the surface. So there is advanced routing with nest layouts, there is API routes, there is server actions. Yeah, it's very interesting to explore the features, and yeah, it's very cool. I want to mention all the meta frameworks, because it seems, wow, Next.js is the only one that is perfect and good. And for this, I checked the state of JS website, which is another survey that happens all the time, every year actually. So what you can see is I'm now on the libraries frontend framework section. If you look here, what you see is a graph about the major frontend libraries, and this is new usage. And what's interesting here, React is number one since basically the last 10 years, and it's also used the most. So it's the most popular one, followed by Vue, and also Angular is popular. Interestingly, if you filter by interest, so that I don't know exactly how the survey was set up, but they ask, okay, what is of interest to you? There are some new frameworks coming up, like Svelte or Newer and Solid and Vue. So in this page, the interest of React is a little bit going down, but it's still in the middle ground. Obviously, if something is popular, you have lots of haters as well. Then let's open up the meta frameworks. So here we have Next.js. As I said before, Next.js is a meta framework for React.js. The same Next.js is a meta framework for Vue.js. And if you look at the stats, it clearly says, hey, Next.js is number one. So why even invest in another one if Next.js is just like over the top? I think there is a lot of things going on in the front-end ecosystem. There's new frameworks coming up, and depending on the use case you have, one is maybe better than the other one. I want to highlight Astro here. Astro is specifically interesting for Drupal because it's made with the idea of websites, content-heavy websites, that have interesting concepts like interactive islands, they call it. I think the Drupal community is also looking in this kind of idea that you can have islands of very interactive mini applications, basically. Astro, for example, is also independent of the framework. So Next.js is really about React, not about Vue. In Astro, you can use both and also others. And if you look at interest, it's also interesting to see that Astro is very becoming popular. This is something you should also look into it as a Drupal community. I just wanted to show the state as well. So let's go back to the presentation. Let's talk about the integration with Drupal. So, as I said in the beginning, it's not Next.js versus Drupal, it's Next.js and Drupal. How can you do that? Actually, it's super simple. You just enable JSON API, and you can load data. So very similar to the example I showed before. You have backend, you load the load data, then you iterate through the blog posts, and then you already have a view of the blog posts in just one single component. Super straightforward, very attractive to use. Of course, there are some challenges. First of all, how do we deal with routing? In Drupal we have slogs, so how do I, node/1, how do I load the correct node? And we have path aliases, how do I load the correct data? Also, how do I handle preview with unpublished content because it's decoupled, so am I logged in on the front end as well? How does that work? Also, how I can send data back. So there's lots of cases you have to think about to make a full website up and running. And luckily, there are solutions for that. So one, it's also the most popular, is Next.js for Drupal. You can look it up. It offers basically a module and also a client-side library specifically built for Next.js. So you can use Next.js for Drupal. There's also other one from HKCRUV. It's quite recent. It's also Next.js and Remix-based. Remix is also React-based. It's using GraphQL. Also solution, and then also our solution, Node-Hide Headless CMS, which is a productized headless Drupal solution. We support not only Next.js but also Astro and other front-end frameworks. And all of them actually have solutions for the problems you would encounter, and I highly recommend you go with one of these solutions. Just to also mention, there are other headless solutions, not Next or React based, but Next based. There is Lupus decoupled by our friends from Vienna. Luckily, we just had, and also Next.js, it was mentioned before. So if you are more on the view side, there are also solutions about that. So let's say if you want to start a Node-Hive-based project, we have a starter, so you can simply use the same command I initially showed, but with the addition of the template, and then you have a fully, I can quickly show what you would receive. So you would receive something like this. So this is the template you get, so you can browse. This is actually load the Drupal menu. This is then also defining the language in the backend. These are actual articles from the backend, and these are from the high pages, and you have payload of the whole node application. Now, based on this data, based on your data structure, you can then apply the correct components, and off you go with your site. So I could do another talk about that, but this was not the idea at this point. Just to give you a little bit of feeling how that could work on your side. So Node-Hive, but also the other solutions come with a client library. This is Node-Hive.js. You can include it in your front end. You simply add your backend, and then you can call get nodes, and then you can say, okay, give me articles. You can also have JSON API parameters, filter, limit, search, etc. But this is easy to use, you know. It's very straightforward and easy to use. And it not only starts with nodes, obviously. You can get many items to load menus. You can load entities by slot. So this is exactly the resolver. You have whatever slot, and then you say, give me entity out of it. Okay, very easy. Also get translated paths if you have multilingual site. So Node-Hive tries to simplify and make it very convenient for front-end developers, even, you know, not talk about Drupalisms. So really, if you only know Next.js, you say, oh, I need to load data. Okay, give me an API. I need a menu. I see then the data structure. Let's render that, and everything works fine. And it goes on. Of course, you can also load taxonomies, some term, media elements. In Node-Hive, you have something like a fragment or areas. I won't go into detail here. So to summarize, why Next.js with Drupal? Developer experience with Next.js is amazing. It's quick, fast ecosystem of NPM packages. It's a modern front-end stack. And actually, if you go Next.js with Drupal, you have the best of both worlds. So Next.js, you have innovation on front-end, and Drupal as a pattern-proof front-end hub with patterns included. And it also allows this idea of a microservice architecture, and I quickly have to explain that with this graphic. So what you see here is actually a vision what Drupal could become. So in the middle, you have a Drupal site, in our case Node-Hive, which offers all the nice, content management features, AI features, web forms, commerce. And then by default, you could think it as a content hub serving multiple frontends by default. So you have a true headless approach, and I say, okay, let's do a B2C site here, let's deliver it to an app, and then also portal, maybe even digital sign screens. And now, since Next.js itself is full stack, so we also have a backend on the front end, to say it like that. It's even possible to load from a portal, for example, data out of other microservices. So, for example, if you have a PIM, why load all the data first into Drupal if you actually can build a micro application within your Next.js to load data from another database? Totally makes sense. Why not use Drupal as a content hub for blog posts, marketing landing pages, and then the whole commerce stuff, take it to Shopify? For starters, for Next.js, integrate to Shopify, nice checkout features, but then if you want more, a blog, okay, we have a headless CMS in the back end. We still have all the features that people use. I think exactly this architecture is a very attractive way to also position Drupal as a headless CMS. That's my personal opinion, and it would be very attractive for enterprise. I actually made this point last year. Also on this stage, the future of Drupal is headless. I also highly recommend to watch the video if you are interested about this. Yeah, and also try out Hive Headless CMS. There's also docs, easy to install. Quick conclusion, what is the takeaway? JavaScript and TypeScript, and I think it's important that we internalize it. It's not going away. It's very popular. PHP, unfortunately, I'm a PHP guy, but unfortunately it's not as popular anymore. I had a discussion with somebody yesterday what is taught in universities. It's JavaScript, it's maybe Java, it's also Python, but it's certainly PHP. So where are the younger people joining our communities? I don't know where they are. I hope they will be with Laravel and the whole innovations in PHP space to make PHP attractive again. But it's important to acknowledge that JavaScript is the future for web development. Also, Next.js installation base is exploding. It's the most used data framework, as I showed before. Next.js comes with robust and advanced features, so it's a very attractive candidate to use it in conjunction with Drupal. If you want to learn more about it, I really scratched on the surface. Vercel offers this course. It's like you can even track the progress. I also went through that, and they always make it new. A very good way to learn. Actually, highly recommend. That was my talk about Next.js and Drupal. I'm not sure if there are questions. Yes. Node Hive. Yeah. In the end, there are several ways I can do that. The most lightweight way, I mean, it always depends on the project. So, which I show our website finally. So this is our Node Hive backend with multiple frontends. So we have multiple marketing landing pages. So I open up the editor, and here I'm now on the tool side. This is loaded as iframe. If I want to, for example, change this text here, these are also paragraphs. I can click here, and then it's opening up to the sidebar. So it's actually leveraging Drupal form of Drupal, but still visible in frontend. And this is a very lightweight approach. So only thing I have to do is add a small component which comes with the Node Hive frontend library, and then it just exposes this edit button, which then triggers, if it's in that range, the sidebar. So that works very well, and it's also easy to integrate. So when we do an offer, this is not an extra spend. It's like you get it for free. For sure, there is also the possibility to edit the full node. So you can use few groups. So I can also drag and drop here, and it's still possible to use the traditional Drupal form. So it really depends on the content. Maybe you want to work with that. Maybe it's very structured. Sometimes you need the visual editor. So there's not one single way. We are also experimenting with an editor similar to the Berkeley editor. It's React-based, which, but then you have much more work to do. You load data, and then you also fully decouple it. So, in my opinion, it really depends on the project. You have to think what is the editorial experience, and I would never argue to say the only way is it's headless in the end. No, ultimately it's headless. Does that answer your question? Any other questions? So will you install Next.js now? Who will install Next.js? Some? Okay. Are you convinced, or what are your concerns? I mean, there are many other headless CMSs that are also good solutions. Historically, we as an agency came from the Drupal world, and why not use Drupal as a headless CMS? I see a lot of debate about Sanity, Stroppy, and Storyblock and others. They also have their own problems. For example, when Stroppy went from, I think, version 2 to 3, it broke so many APIs. The community was very upset. So very similar to Drupal 7 to Drupal 8. They lost a big part of the community. So Sanity has a strange licensing model where it's actually the content is content-led, cloud-based, and you cannot really do yourself. And Drupal has an interesting standing, so it's Apple-proof, and it's not only, it's actually an interesting story. So I talked about the next Drupal guys from chapter 3. And there was a conference, I think 2 years ago in San Francisco, and they were talking about content management system and structured content. That's the new revolution of content management. We have structured content. And you know, from a Drupal perspective, are you joking? We have fields in your content modeling since, I don't know, 20 years. So I think we undersell these features because they are given for us. It's very interesting if you do marketing for no time to say, hey, you can build content types. You can build content types. That's a very powerful feature. For us, like, are you joking? It's a feature. This is the basis, right? So I think Drupal has interesting standing, and as I wrote or said, that includes like ECA, all these things you need to run a website. Yeah, I mean, at Stroppy, they also have an open source approach, fully open source like Drupal. But Drupal has a very, very good standing there. So it's a global community, and what I miss is really the marketing from, leadership, basically from trees saying, hey, Drupal is not okay, we can do it both, traditional and a little bit, but where is actually full, all in, headless. And still go Drupal CMS, but it's another market, And I feel the topic is not as important as it should be if you look at the numbers I so, and I'm very interested to even form a group to push that forward. So if somebody's there, contact me. You have a question? Or comment? Yeah. Yeah, it's good to hear. I think it's very important for core contributors also to push that forward. Sometimes I have the feeling there is a little bit of defense, and I don't know why. Maybe you can explain it why. Or it's too political. Anyway, I mean, yeah, let's just work together and do cool websites. People in a modern environment. Thank you very much for being here, and I'm around. There was, by the way, was an Easter egg in the presentation. I don't know if you saw it, but I will maybe reveal it at one point.